Son of Darkness.
Hello Saber fans, this is Eric from Dark Path Media with an overview and tutorial of my new Saber font entitled
Son of Darkness.
Why a tutorial? Reason being, this is not just a sound font, but rather a full collection of sounds, LED effects, and completed font files made available in multiple formats. In total, there are over 400 files, including 170 sound files in both WAV and LSU formats, 61 Ultrasabers launcher effect files in both RGBA and RGBW formats, and finally, one complete full font file in both RGBA and RGBW formats. This Saber font package was designed to provide you with maximum flexibility, and this tutorial is made to help you get every possible enjoyment out of it. Before we get too far here, I should not neglect to mention that based on the volume of content I'll be covering in this video, it's a little bit on the long side. In this video, I cover everything from how to access the files, how to download them, how to get them on your computer, how to properly get them on your Saber, the differences between RGBW and RGBA LED setups, and I demonstrate every single one of the effects files available in the Son of Darkness collection. So, if you're cool with downloading, and you're very familiar with how to work with the Ultrasabers launcher, you could probably skip to different parts of this video. And for that purpose, I have included a chapter index in the description below. Before we get into the details of how to download the files and get everything properly installed on your Saber, let's take a look at the completed product in action so you can determine whether or not this is something you're interested in. First, I made a video that features each of the 170 sounds in succession, which is on screen now. I included a WAV file viewer at the bottom and a decibel meter on the right. The decibel meter is there, so you can see that the sounds are loud enough to be dynamic and pop as they should, but also to show you that no sound breaches 0 dB and there is no danger of damage to your speaker. Let's take a quick look at that video. I have included a link to the full video in the forum post as well as in the video description. Second, I made a quick video of my Renegade with the Son of Darkness font installed, showing several of the sounds as triggered by various motions, impacts, etc. It's a simple video that was shot on my iPhone and maybe the most representative of what you can expect when you install the font on your own Saber. Let's take a quick look at that video. I have included a link to the full version of this video as well in the forum post and in the video description. Okay, so how do you get these files? I have uploaded all of the files to my Dropbox, and there are two ways to access the link necessary for download. If you are a member of the Saber Forum, which this project is intended for, head over to saberforum.com. Click on the Obsidian Order. Then, click on Sound Fonts. Click on my post entitled New Font, Son of Darkness Release, Overview, and Tutorial. Click on the link provided entitled darkpath.media/Son of Darkness. And you will be taken here to the files in my Dropbox. Here, you will see 3 folders in the main directory: Effects, Fonts, and Sounds. In both the Effects and Fonts folders, you will see two subfolder options entitled RGBA and RGBW. The choice pertains to the type of LED setup you have in your diamond-equipped Saber. Based on my understanding, the choice between RGBA and RGBW, as well as the Effects or Fonts portion of this download, is of no consequence to a Saber in any configuration other than Diamond. In short, if you don't have a Diamond Saber, you can head straight to the Sound Files download. If you do have a Diamond-equipped Saber, however, I'll cover the important differences between RGBA and RGBW, so you download the files that work best with your setup. When you order a Diamond Saber from Ultrasabers, you are given the option to choose between RGBA and RGBW, typically as the first choice in the ordering process. Let's take a look at this for the two Sabers featured in this video, the first being the Renegade. For the Renegade, RGBW LED is the default choice, and you will see RGBA LED as the other available option at an additional cost of $5. Now, let's check out the Consular. For the Consular, RGBW LED is once again the default choice, and in this listing, as it is in most, it is shown to be the recommended choice. RGBA LED remains an available option at additional cost, but shown specifically to be not recommended. You might be thinking to yourself, as I did, why is RGBA not recommended, and what's the difference? Personally, I think RGBA is listed as not recommended because it serves a very specific and likely less frequently desired purpose, rather than satisfying the vast majority of expectations. And that purpose is deeper, richer shades of red, orange, and yellow. The W in RGBW stands for white, meaning that you get red, green, blue, and white. With pure white connected to channel 4, the result is much purer whites and, generally speaking, a wider array of available colors. The A in RGBA stands for amber, meaning that you get red, green, blue, and amber. With amber connected to channel 4, the desired result is deeper, richer shades of red, orange, and yellow, as stated briefly earlier. You can still achieve white with RGBA. It just requires that you mix all 4 channels together and set them to maximum brightness. You have to specifically want deeper, richer shades of red, orange, and yellow to justify RGBA, in my opinion, and that was my intent with the Renegade. Personally, I think the difference is detectable but subtle, but you can make that determination for yourself a little later in the video, as I have RGBA and RGBW setups featured side by side for comparison. Why is it necessary to offer effects and fonts in both styles, you might ask? The main point, as it relates to the download of effects and/or fonts in this collection, is that the difference in how you achieve certain colors in the Ultrasabers launcher between RGBA and RGBW can be significant, with significantly different results. To make a long story, well, longer, I purchased my Renegade with the RGBA LED setup and configured all of my light sequences with it. Honestly, I didn't anticipate doing anything beyond that. However, understanding that the vast majority of people looking to utilize this font probably have Sabers with the RGBW setup, I knew I needed to reconfigure the light sequences to be compatible with RGBW. Otherwise, for at least a large portion of the effects, the colors wouldn't look right. So, the bottom line is, make sure you download the effect files and font file that matches your setup. For both the Effects and Fonts folders, the RGBA and RGBW subfolders contain all the same files, with the difference being that they are configured for the appropriate setup. It's probably rare that a single person needs the entirety of both the RGBA and RGBW files, so you can select the folder you need and download just that folder. That said, when it comes to simplicity, if you have a reasonably fast internet connection, it may be easier to just select download from the main Son of Darkness directory, download everything to your computer, and discard whatever you don't need later. Note that on a Mac, the file will typically download to the Downloads folder in the user directory by default, whereas on a Windows PC, you will be given the option to save as and select a location of your choosing. You may or may not be required to decompress the files on a Mac depending on the version of OS X you're running, but you will almost certainly be required to unzip the files on a Windows PC. Decompression software typically comes installed on most modern PCs. Just right-click the zip folder, select Extract All, specify a location, and you're done. Okay, let's hook up the Saber to the computer, open up the Ultrasabers launcher, and check out all of the effects files. And we will wait for the software to recognize the Saber. Alright, everything is recognized, we're good to go. Go over here to Font Wizard. It'll show you all the fonts currently on your Saber. The modern firmware can hold up to 16 different fonts, so most people have plenty of room. Select the spot of your choice, typically the first unused slot. Go over to Load Font. I downloaded my files to my Downloads folder. Here are your effects, fonts, and sounds folders. We can go ahead and load a full font. Here are your RGBA and RGBW choices like we talked about. I do have the RGBA LED set up in my Renegade, so I'll select Son of Darkness. Get it loaded on there. It says the font is okay. It says press right to begin downloading the sounds to your board, so we'll do that. Then we will go through all the effects and sounds that come by default with this font file. We will go ahead and write the entire font to the board now. I have everything pretty much full in terms of the maximum amount of sounds that you can apply to effects and the whole font in general, so it takes a little bit of time to write all that to the board. Okay, it looks like everything was written successfully. So we will select Son of Darkness and go through everything that is included. Then, when we're done, we'll go through all of the effects that are not included by default. I think I have all the best stuff included in the default font file, but of course all this stuff is interchangeable, so if you see something else that you like, you can put it on here pretty easily. Let's start with the tag effect. I'll go ahead and open the automation window for the power LEDs for each of these effects so you can see how they're done. There's the file, and we'll go ahead and test it.
Son of Darkness.
That is the default tag or boot sound, and there are two more available, and we'll go through that later in the extras section. We'll go ahead and take a look at the power on effect now. And the power off effect. As is the case with several effects in this collection, there are several power on and power off effects to choose from. That is, other than the ones I've chosen here for the default font file. I have simply selected my favorites, but if you go through the effect files and you find something you like better than these, I'll show you how to get those loaded on. Now, we'll take a look at the idle or hum effect. I think the power LED sequence for the hum came out pretty good, but I am limited by the 20-point maximum established by the Ultrasabers launcher software. You can see here in the automation window that it's a relatively short sequence, mostly including suppression of red with a little bit of green and blue in there, and it's repeated 20 times. Here is what it looks like. Pretty cool, and of course there is only one hum sound and one hum effect. The hum sound is usually the heartbeat of any font because it is underneath every other sound in the collection. Of course, you are free to mess around with how the power LED sequence looks for this, but there is only one hum sound. Moving on to the swing effects here. Now, the swing effects are just sounds. There are no power LED light sequences associated with them. You can see all of the power LEDs are turned off. The swing effects are triggered exactly the same way as anything else by motion. There's just no light show. The board selects which sounds it plays by random, so we won't go through them all. You can listen to every single one of the sounds featured in this collection in the first of the two videos I spoke about earlier. The second of the two videos I spoke of earlier, the one shot with the iPhone, features pretty much all of the sounds as well. Now we'll move on to the impact effects, which do have power LED lighting associated with them. The board selects the impact sounds at random as well, so we'll just go through a few. And you can take a quick look at what the power LED sequence looks like. Here, you can see somewhat of an example of what we talked about earlier in terms of how to achieve white with RGBA. You can get pretty close with just blue, green, and amber. Let's go ahead and test a couple of these clash effects. I did include what I'm calling blaster effects here, and that's pretty much what they are. There's no special place for them, but they are designed to go right here in the clash effects section. There's one. Alright, moving on to the spin effects. There are LED sequences associated with the spins. We'll take a look at those. You can see in this example the colors don't look exactly right. If you have some experience messing around with the Ultrasabers launcher software, you may or may not know that if you turn off any power LED, it will simply resume the previous sequence. In this case, red is predominant in my hum effect, so I didn't need to add it here. For demonstration purposes, we'll go ahead and max out the red so that it looks right. So basically, if you want any color to behave differently than it does in your hum effect, then you want to program that here. If not, you can turn it off completely. Now, let's move on to the stab effects. So I have a total of 6 stab sounds available, but I only have 5 loaded onto the font here. Reason being, the one I've left out is just too long in comparison to the other 5. All of the sounds should be relatively similar in duration in order to sync well with the lighting. Moving on to the force effects, I have a total of 12 force effects and sounds included, but you only could put one on your saber at a time. The one I chose for the default is the classic one from The Force Awakens. Once again, the color's a little bit off in the demonstration because I do have the red power LED turned off. Here's what it looks like corrected. Again, this effect is the one I just happened to choose for the default. You can pick any one of the 12 that are offered and put them in there. You can, of course, choose to configure the lighting however you wish, but I have pre-configured LED lighting effects for each one of the 12 sounds. Moving on to the lockup effect. As is the case with the force effect, you are only allowed to choose one lockup sound at a time. This one happens to be my favorite. I have a total of 6 lockup sounds and effects included in this collection. You can choose whichever one you wish, and the sounds are different, but the lighting effect is pretty much the same on all of them, with some subtle differences. The one you're seeing here is a hybrid of the classic Lockup sound in the battle between Kylo Ren and Finn at the end of The Force Awakens with a little bit of Praetorian Guard weaponry mixed in there. And finally, for the stuff included in the default font, the gestures. I have two different types of sounds which are intended to be used in this gesture section. One is the combos, those are relatively short, and the other one is the sequences, which are much longer. The sequences are anywhere from 20 to 40 seconds long. They're a little bit of a novelty, they're just for fun, and we'll take a look at those after we do these default ones. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the effects assigned to these 5 gestures. In the default font, I do not have any sequences assigned, these are all the shorter combos. Gesture effects are triggered by a series of custom movements assigned by the user, and I will not go over those right now. But let's take a look at combo effect number 1, which has been assigned to gesture number 1.
I'll show you the dark side.
Damn right, I'll show you the dark side.
And now combo effect 3, assigned to gesture number 2.
By the grace of your training, I will not be seduced.
We shall see. We shall see.
And now combo effect 6, loaded in gesture number 3. Damn traitor, Finn. And now, combo effect number 4 loaded in gesture number 4.
The droid. Where is it?
Where is it?
And combo effect number 11 loaded in gesture number 5. And I believe this is our beloved Supreme Leader Snoke.
Son of darkness, heir apparent to Lord Vader.
Where there was conflict, I now sense resolve. Where there was weakness, strength.
Okay, so that is everything that you get in the default font file. Everything that we went through is included in there. All you need to do is load it on your Saber and you are done. Now we will go through every single one of the additional effects files available in this collection, and there are many. Since there is so much additional content, you may very well prefer some of the additional stuff to that which we saw in the default font file, and it's real easy to switch out. Let's go ahead and take a look at all that stuff now. You can test everything through the effects editor without changing your font file at all. We will go through the alternate tag and boot sounds first. If you want to change something out or just test it, you just click on load here and find the file. As long as you don't press write to board or add to font, you could do this all day. So let's go back to the Son of Darkness download folder, click on effects. As another reminder, I am using the RGBA effects because that's a setup I have. Most of you are probably using RGBW, so make note to use those. Oh, and I forgot to mention when we started the default effects that I do have the Consular featured in the lower right hand section of this video, and that is an RGBW LED setup. These are being shown simultaneously so that you can see the difference between RGBA and RGBW. The Consular is running all the same effects at the same time, but using the effects and font from the RGBW folder. Let's take a look at boot number 2. There is one more boot tag effect available, and that is boot number 3. We'll load that one into the effects editor. Take a look at it right now.
Kylo Ren.
Okay, those two, including the default one we saw earlier, are the 3 choices for tag and boot effects that you have. Moving on to the power on effects, the default was number 4, so we'll go ahead and take a look at the other ones, starting with number 1. These are obviously pretty short, and they use the same effect as the hum, or at least they transition into that, so it looks smooth. Alright, let's load up and take a look at power on number 2. Now moving on to power on number 3. You might notice that on some of these effects, I have the illuminated AV switch matching the flicker of the hum, and that's controlled by the accent LEDs. The flickering effect on the illuminated AV switch is more prevalent on the hum than it is on the power on and power off effects, but it is noticeable on the last 3 power on effects that we'll see here in a minute. Next is power on number 4, which is the default effect, which we've already seen, so we'll move on to number 5. Power on number 5 is the first of these last 3 power on effects that include that classic delayed ignition. I have recently had some discussion with Marlena over at Ultrasabers customer service about the possibility of having the side blades work independently of the main blade. Having this capability would of course make the delayed ignition possible from a visual standpoint, but it is not yet available. So I did my best to visually demonstrate that kind of hiccup delayed ignition of Kylo Ren's lightsaber with the current capabilities of the power LEDs. And now we'll move on to power on number 6. The delayed ignition effect is slightly more prominent on 6 than it was with 5. And for the final power on effect, power on number 7, the delayed effect is even slightly more pronounced than it is in number 6. So there are all 7 of your available power on effect options. You can pick whichever one is your favorite and easily add it to your Saber. So now we'll move on to all the power off effects. Power off number 3 is the default, so we'll start with number 1. I believe that is the quickest of all of them. Moving on to power off effect number 2. Those first 2 power off effects are straight from the film The Force Awakens. The default power off number 3, however, is a hybrid. I mixed together the beginning of power off number 2 with the end of power off number 1. Let's go ahead and check that out real quick. I like power off number 2 a lot, but I really enjoy that pronounced conclusion of power off number 1. So I just created a unique one using both. And now the fourth and final power off effect. So that is all of the power off effects. And of course there's only one hum available, which we've already seen, so we'll move on. Alright, about the swing effects. As we went over a little bit earlier, there is no lighting effects associated with swings, and because of that, I did not create alternate swing effect files. There are a total of 30 swing sounds available in this collection, and you can use up to 15 of them at a time. Such is the same with the impact effects. There are LED lighting sequences associated with impact effects, but they're all pretty much the same. And because of that, just like the swings, I did not create alternate impact effect files. You can replace any of the impact sounds with your favorites pretty easily. Moving on to spin effects, pretty much the same thing as swings and clashes. The lighting effects are the same, and thusly there are not alternate versions for spins available. Truth be told, there's only 20 spin sounds available in this collection, and that means there's only 5 not featured here. For the swings, the impacts, and the spins, I do think I have the best sounds in here, but of course you can replace them to your own taste. For the stabs, we covered those in the default section, and pretty much everything that can be used is in here. When we were talking about the stabs in the default section, you might remember I said there was one sound and only one sound not included. That sound was stab number 5, and it's not included here because it's almost twice as long as the other ones. When it's that much longer, it just doesn't work well with the lighting sequence. Now I should say, if you just really like the sound of stab number 5, you can bring that one in and use only that one if you wish. Moving on to the force effects, I have a total of 12 of those available, and you can only use one at a time. So let's take a look at all those, starting with force number 2. So that is very similar to the default force number 1, except it has that blaster bolt suspension from the Force Awakens. Moving on to force number 3. happen to like that one a lot. It was a tough choice between that one and the one I picked for the default. That one happens to be from the Battlefront 2 video game. Let's check out force number 4. Force number 5. A little bit more violence of action on that one, with a little bit of atmospheric effects on the end. As you can see, all of the force effect files do have their own pre-configured LED lighting effects. So if you want to use one of these, you can just bring them in and you're ready to go, instead of just bringing in sounds and doing the lighting yourself. Moving on now to force number 6. Some fun, scary stuff on the end of that one. Force number 7. If you're looking to bring a cliff down on someone, that's the effect for you. Force number 8. To clarify, Darksiders are always interested in bringing cliffs down on their enemies. Here is force number 9. Man, there are a ton of these force sounds. And yet another one, force number 10. Haha, yes, I almost forgot. That's the first of these last 3 that have some nice little screams at the end of them. Darksiders do indeed like to hear their enemies scream. I think force number 11 does have the loudest scream and is therefore my favorite. Yeah, that's a good one. And now for the 12th and final effect in the Force collection. So, since there are so many Force effects, if you do like one of these more than the default, you just load it in and hit write to board. Alternatively, if you want to make several changes and then write everything to the board at once, you can load everything in and just hit add to font. Then you can write all the changes you've made to the board in one step. Alright, moving on to the Lockup effects. There are some alternate effects files here that you can use. Lockup 6 was the default, so we'll go ahead and go through the other 5. Let's take a look at Lockup number 1. So that is a straight up short sequence of the lockup between Kylo Ren and Finn at the end of The Force Awakens. Among all these choices, there are differences in both the LED effects and the sounds, albeit they are somewhat subtle. Some of them, like that one, are straight up sound captures from the films, and some are hybrids that I mix together. Here is Lockup number 2. Similar to Lockup number 1, that has a little bit more of the friction sound in there. Here's Lockup number 3. That one is just a variation of Lockup 1 and 2 with the friction sounds in different spots. Here comes Lockup number 4. You may have noticed that the lighting effect on that one is a little bit different, it's a little bit brighter. And the last Lockup effect you haven't seen, number 5. Lockup number 5 has probably the most Praetorian Guard weapon sound in it. I just found that sound to be particularly interesting, which is, of course, something that Star Wars content has always been really great for. So, those are all your available Lockup effects, and we'll move on to the gesture section here. So, there is a wide variety of sounds that you can use here in the gesture section. You have a total of 16 different combo effects, and a total of 8 extended sequence effects. So we'll go ahead and go through all the combo effects first, and we'll take a look at the stuff we haven't seen in the default section, starting with number 2.
What girl?
What girl? The droid stole a freighter.
Combos 3 and 4 were included in the default section, so we will move on to combo number 5.
We're not done yet.
Very true, we are not done yet. Come to think of it, a Darksider's work is never truly done. Combo 6 was also included in the default section, so we'll move on to combo number 7.
The mighty Kylo Ren.
I am not nearly brave enough to argue with dark power the likes of Supreme Leader Snoke, but I would like to see Kylo Ren be a little more mighty. Here is combo 8.
You were unbalanced.
He was unbalanced. He was thinking about Rey too damn much. Combo number 9.
You failed!
I did very much enjoy the fact that Snoke demeaned him a bit for that, because he did fail, and he should not have. So the combos do include stuff from both The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi, and of course, I will update this font with whatever goodies we get from Episode 9. Here's combo number 10.
Let the past die. Kill it if you have to.
Personally, I am not a huge fan of the Let the Past Die crap, because I'm an old school Star Wars fan. I did have to include it though, because it's already pretty iconic. And here we have some more anti-old school propaganda from Kylo Ren in combo number 12.
It's time to let old things die.
I may qualify as old, so I am not in agreement with that. So you can see there are a ton of choices on these combo effects. You can use whichever ones you want. Moving onward to combo 13.
No, you're still holding on! Let go!
He wanted Rey to join him so they could live blissfully together on the dark side. Poor guy. Here's combo 14.
Did you come back to say you forgive me? To save my soul?
During that part in The Last Jedi, I love how Luke's like, no, I'm not here to save your soul. I am here to whip your butt. And a part of me really wanted to see that. Getting close to the end here. Here's combo 15.
Resistance is dead. The war is over. And when I kill you, I will have killed the last Jedi.
For all of you Darkseid fans, during that part on Crate, you might have seen a little bit of Darkseid degradation setting in already on Kylo Ren. And here he is freaking out for combo 16. I could not resist putting that one in there. I think Kylo Ren's emotional instability makes him an unpredictable villain, which is pretty cool. So those are all the combos, all 16 of them that you can use here in your Saber font. You can use up to 5 at a time assigned to each of these 5 gestures. They are relatively short and sweet and hopefully representative of your favorite Kylo Ren parts from the films, so you can get some payoff when you complete those gestures. Alrighty, next we'll go through each of those 8 extended sequences I talked about. They are pieces straight from the films, slightly modified for time because they're so long to begin with. I do think they're a lot of fun, but based on how long they are a little bit of a novelty, but let's check them out. There is no special or specific place for these extended sequences. They are designed to go into the same spot as the combos are in one of these 5 gesture spots. We will go ahead and take a look at all 8 of those now. Like I said, they're long. I think they're a little bit of a novelty. From my point of view, I think I created them to be a part of a second or alternate version of the Son of Darkness font that you may decide to create and put on your Saber. You put these longer extended sequences on the alternate version, and it's something that you can just kind of mess around with and show your friends. And without further ado, sequence number 1.
The map to Skywalker. We know you found it. And now you're going to give it to the First
The First Order rose from the dark side. You did not.
I'll show you the dark side.
You may try, but you cannot deny the truth. That is your family.
You are so right.
Because, of course, Lord Vader was very much a part of the truth that is Kylo Ren's family. So, as you can see with these extended sequences, you pretty much just sit back and enjoy the show. All of the LED lighting effects are synced with the audio. The saber turns on when it needs to, it turns off when it needs to, and you just let it go. Let's check out sequence number 2. So, I have to dedicate that last one to a user on the forum that goes by the name of 4Tyeth. When I first posted my Renegade video with the Son of Darkness font installed, 4Tyeth quickly commented that he thought it was one of the most menacing sound fonts he had ever heard, and said that it reminded him very much of that specific part in The Force Awakens. So, thank you very much for that, 4Tyeth. That one's for you. Onward now to sequence number 3.
There's been an awakening. Have you felt it? Yes. There's something more. The droid we seek is aboard the Millennium Falcon, in the hands of your father, Han Solo. He means nothing to me. Even you, Master of the Knights of Ren, have never faced such a test. By the grace of your training, I will not be seduced. We shall see. We shall see.
Master of the Knights of Ren.
Speaking of those guys, I hope we see them in episode 9. Next up, sequence number 4.
The scavenger resisted you.
She is strong with the Force. Untrained but stronger than she knows.
And the droid.
Ren believed it was no longer valuable to us. That the girl was all we needed.
Supreme Leader, I can get the map from the girl. I just need your guidance.
If what you say about this girl is true, bring her to me.
So, as long as these extended sequence parts are, I have edited them to be as short and concise as possible. You'll notice that in the film, that specific part was noticeably longer. So, they're still long, but I did try to make them as reasonable as I could. Here's sequence number 5.
No.
With that one, we are now in the last half of the sequence group. Only a few more left now. Here is sequence number 6.
That lightsaber, it belongs to me. Come get it.
So, 6 out of a total of 8 sequences done. We are pretty heavy on The Force Awakens. But these last 2 are from The Last Jedi. Let's check out sequence number 7.
Son of Darkness, heir apparent to Lord Vader. Where there was conflict, I now sense resolve. Where there was weakness, strength, compassion. training and fulfill your destiny. I know what I have to do.
Kylo Ren does know what he has to do. He has to stab Rey straight through the abdomen. That is, more or less, what that sequence infers. And for that, I have to apologize to any of our light side forum users. I'm a Darksider and I have dark thoughts. Last but not least, in the sequence collection and the entire Son of Darkness font collection, sequence number 8.
I cannot be betrayed. I cannot be beaten. I see his mind. I see his every intent. Yes, I see him turning the lightsaber to strike true. And now, foolish child, he ignites it and kills his true enemy.
Does anyone else think Snoke was being maybe a little too confident to not know what was coming? Just saying. Alright friends, that is the conclusion of everything in the Son of Darkness font collection. We've seen it all. It took a couple solid months to develop this font, the sounds, the effects, and everything. I tried to include as much cool stuff as possible to give you the maximum amount of options and the most flexibility to configure a high-quality Kylo Ren sound font you can have a ton of fun with. I sincerely hope that all you Ultrasabers fans and fellow Saber addicts enjoy this font collection and receive maximum enjoyment from it. Should you have any questions about this font, any of the sounds, any of the effects, more information on how to use the Ultrasabers launcher, or just anything in general, please do not hesitate to reach out to me. You can comment on this very forum post, or you can reach me via private message, whatever suits you best. This is Eric from Dark Path Media.
May the Force be with you.
And have a great day.